Hello again. Now, the Pentagon says that civilians may have been killed in a US-led coalition airstrike. It comes as the campaign to liberate the city of Mosul from Islamic State in Iraq resumes. With more, here's our Washington correspondent, Alexei.
Well, we received an official statement from the joint task force operating in Iraq, in the Mosul operation to be precise, saying that on December 29th they were attacking an ISIS van with a precise airstrike. And apparently, according to the statement, the van was struck in what was later determined to be a hospital compound parking lot, resulting in possible civilian casualties. There's no information yet as to how many civilians could have been killed in that potential airstrike, and the Joint Task Force says it will be investigating in detail what exactly happened there. But to many human rights organizations and many monitors observing the operation in Mosul, this comes as little surprise. We remember Amnesty International sending out a warning to the Joint Task Force there.
If a IS target was hit or perhaps missed, perhaps more could have been done to ensure that civilians had left the area beforehand, that greater checks can have been done to make sure that civilians were not actually there. So we think that probably the US authorities are failing to adequately assess the intelligence which they're provided, and they're not doing enough to acknowledge civilian deaths.
The Joint Task Force also claimed in this statement today that they are completely transparent about every single operation and every single airstrike they conduct. But Amnesty International, again, did not buy into this, and they claim that the death toll, or the civilian death toll in Syria and Iraq may be downplayed by the officials.
Announced that something like 119 civilians have been killed across the two countries. That may be just, say, perhaps 10% or 5% of the true civilian death toll from US-led coalition attacks in the countries. Now,
this latest incident with potential civilian deaths comes on the day when the Mosul operation was basically restarted after a two-week lull. The operation, which has been going on for several months already, but of course we'll have to wait and see what the death toll, the civilian death toll is there, and we'll be waiting for more details from the Joint Task Force.
We also spoke with Max Abrams. He's a counter-terrorism expert at Boston's Northeastern University, and he believes that the US-led campaign in Iraq is likely to cause further collateral damage.
The US does have high-precision weapons, and yet mistakes are sometimes made. These kinds of mistakes are inherent to the nature of this kind of conflict. In this case, what seems to have happened is that the US did actually spot Islamic State guys and target them and kill them. The problem, at least according to reports, is that the vehicle that they shot at was based in some compound close to a hospital. In the wake of this attack, what's going to happen is there's going to be an investigation to see why this happened. And then CENTCOM is going to try to make adjustments in order to ensure going forward that mistakes like these don't happen. But I promise you, they will continue to happen regardless of the military or how precise the weapons are. Whenever you have terrorists who are hiding out among so many civilians, these sorts of tragedies will happen. This Mosul operation is taking longer than we wanted. Islamic State fighters have been there for a long time, and they know that this is really their last stronghold. And so they're very, very dug in. They've had time to prepare. They're dispatching suicide, terrorist martyrdom operations at a very, very fast clip. And yes, this is a very densely packed area, and CENTCOM wants to do, the most possible to minimize tragedies like the one we're talking about.
Meanwhile, there is more evidence of terrorists using chemical weapons in Aleppo. Correspondents from Sputnik's Arabic news agency have visited an alleged factory used by militants. In fact, here's some video taken by their journalists. And as you can see, the floor in the factory's alleged factory is covered with purple stains, presumably stained there by chemicals. There are also various canisters and packages and chemistry equipment too scattered around the building. The Syrian military officials say chemicals were added here to the rebels' missiles and rockets and were then used on government forces as well as civilian areas of Aleppo. Well, among the mentioned chemical attacks, the shelling targeted a military academy as well as a housing complex back in October. And there have been reports too of soldiers and civilians killed.
I left my house as soon as the shelling started, but on my way I inhaled something. I felt a sharp pain in my chest.
The injured we are treating show signs of chlorine poisoning. They have breathing difficulties and damage to their eyes.
The group of terrorists we clashed with today have used some chemical substance against us. My whole body hurts.
All the patients were suffocating after they inhaled a poison gas.
Former US Army Judge Advocate Todd Pierce told us that there does need to be an international effort to investigate the rebels' actions.
I think the use of chemical weapons does go beyond, obviously, international law. And when there is an opportunity, I think it should be an independent, unbiased investigation into the use of chemical weapons. Quite honest, the United States should not be a participant because they've been a co-combatant in this war beginning in 2009 when we started arming people that we call elsewhere terrorists and whom we, pretty much kill at will with drone warfare. But yet we're backing them with weapons and moral support in Syria with the sole purpose of bringing down the Assad government.
So that's how the news looks so far today here on RT. I'll be back with more news and the headlines in about 35 minutes' time. Before that, though, it's Boom Bust.